Thank you for joining us again for Table Talk. I'm your host, Stan Deatherage. This is my co-host, Down East Dave Hudson. We're together again. We haven't been together in some time. We just finished a Table Talk. Hence, you'll probably see us wearing the same clothes again. But on the heels of the last one, we talked about Charlie Kirk. We're going to talk about some things that have happened in the last month and a half here in America. These are historic times, extra historic times. More's happened in the last 10 months than it happened during the whole Biden administration, at least good stuff. And important stuff.
A lot of things going on.
Yeah, huge stuff.
You're looking at government shutdown. You're looking at dealing with Russia. You're looking at the peace deals coming out of the Middle East. Just a lot of different things that are taking place.
You're talking about bombing nuclear facilities in Iran,
right?
In conjunction with the Israelis, our number one ally in the Middle East. You're talking about Arabs and Israelis coming together again, because they came together during the first Abraham Accords during the Trump administration. It's a fact that's not talked about much because it's overshadowed by the Democratic Socialists and non-patriot left going after Trump to impeach him for made-up stuff. And twice, even when he was out of office. Can you believe that? But we're going to talk about politics. We're going to talk about how important it is for folks to understand what is real and not believe what they hear on social media or through influencers that really don't have enough sense to really be talking, but they're talking anyway.
That's right.
Blah, 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 blah. Most of the times they say things that aren't right or true. And we're going to give you the truth. We're going to give you the truth as we know it. And you can fact check us all you want. Please, you come to Eastern North Carolina now and tell us how dumb we are.
That's
Please.
right.
We'd love it. We'd love for you to do it. We'd welcome it.
Constructive criticism's the best type.
We love constructive criticism. Write it down. Let me write you back. We'll see who comes out on top. You might come out on top. At least you might think you are. Good luck.
If not, we learned something.
Maybe. Okay. Yeah. A little bit about us. I've been in government a while. I've been experiencing a lot of life. You've been in the military a while. You've been experiencing a lot of life. What do you think about what's going on, understanding history like I do and you do? I mean, you've got your major in history. I've enjoyed history ever since I was a little kid. My dad talked to me about World War II and how it began and why it began. And we live in an age where people that aren't very smart call people Hitler and Stalin and Mussolini and fascists, and they don't even know what they're talking about. They have no clue. They heard somebody else say it that they thought was smart, so we're going to say it.
Name calling becomes the easy solution when you don't have an argument that holds up, and or you don't have the ability to argue or debate in a civilized manner. It falls back to name calling, and that achieves nothing.
But without support.
That's right.
No support. I mean, Trump's been called Hitler. How many people has he killed so far? How many people has he had assassinated?
None to my knowledge.
Yeah. They tried to assassinate him twice.
That's right.
Wow.
No.
I mean, the fascists. You know what fascist is? It's somebody who believes that there should be no response to whatever issues they bring forth. And they will ram them through, and they will make things work until they don't work anymore. But that's what you call authoritarianism.
Right.
And here in America, we are people of self-governed. We have mechanisms where we can do things where there's checks and balances on everything, even the judiciary. I mean, the president can check and balance it. Congress can check and balance the judiciary. They can impeach a justice if they want to. It's going to be hard to do, but they can do it.
But that's why the government was set up the way it was. That's what protected the U.S. citizen and gave the people the power of, how we run the country. You elect your representatives, and then they have the checks and balances. But it is up to us, the constituent, the voter, the public, to the people to really dictate the path and direction of the country, because we're electing those people who are supposedly representing us. So there are no kings here.
There are no kings.
And there are checks and balances upon those powers that we see taking place.
We have states' rights.
That's right.
Country, and states have a lot more power than people realize. You need to know your state, unless it's an authoritative blue state, has a lot of power. And even the governments are set up, local governments. Beaufort County government. I am a county commissioner, been one for 25 years. We're a body politic of the state of North Carolina. We exist at the behest of the state of North Carolina to do their business here locally. And they ask us to do it here locally because we're closer to the people, and it can be done more efficiently, more effectively, and with great knowledge of what the people would like to have done. Although we are guided by many laws, general statutes, and we have to stay within those laws and general statutes. State government, the 10th Amendment gives the state government much power, much power. Federal government should have less power.
A lot less.
And we both believe that.
Absolutely. And I think that that's what we're seeing with President Trump, is trying to bring the size of the government and the power to interfere in our personal lives or in all kinds of other things that happen, business, everything else. We're looking to see that decrease. And I think that's where a lot of people are having problems.
They've never understood that a federalization of our society, which is good, but we don't need a federal government overburdening all of us with their humongous bureaucrat class.
That's right.
I mean, we've all met people from Virginia and Maryland that have moved down here to North Carolina, and they worked in government. And whether they're Democrats or Republicans, a lot of them still believe you got to have a huge bureaucracy, and it eats up a lot of money. That's one of the reasons we're so far in debt. That and giving away things rather than expecting people to work for what they deserve.
And you can see a lot more efficiency in privatization than you can in government. And all you have to do is look at how some of the government agencies are run and how effective they are. Whether you go to the DMV or wait in a line at TSA at the airport to see, private business could probably handle that more effectively and more efficiently and more cost effective than what you would see out of the federal government.
And NGOs are a problem.
It's a big problem. It's one of those things, specifically even with the military. In my military experience, at the end of the Cold War, the military started to outsource a lot of the jobs. It used to be your cooks cooked in the mess hall. Now it's mostly civilians. A lot of those former jobs that were done by service members went to private organization for the very same reasons. You can get it done efficiently, you get it done more cost effectively for the military, and then those dollars that they are getting are appropriated for things that are most important. And so that the idea of big government doing everything for everybody, that's essentially, it's a welfare state. Even Franklin Roosevelt was against that. And he's credited with doing a lot of things, but he had
his wife was the number one culprit in
yes,
the socialism that came out of the Roosevelt
era. But he even stated at one point in time, and I don't recall the quote, but he even said, when people become too dependent on the government, that's when everything ceases to operate. So he realized the dangers of it.
He did. And his cousin, or was it his uncle? It was Theodore Roosevelt.
Theodore Roosevelt was a cousin, if I remember
First cousin, though. First cousin. Well, Theodore had it together.
Yes.
He was the best of the Roosevelts by far.
Absolutely.
Well, we've talked about that. We've talked about bureaucracy. I guess we got to talk about the government shutdown now. It's happening.
It's happening. It's right at a month now, I think.
Yeah. Right. Close.
Ongoing.
Pretty close. And it's probably going to keep on going. Generally, Congress is in charge. Wouldn't you agree with me that the number one branch of the three branches of government is the legislative branch?
It is. They really control. They control the power of the purse. They have the ability to pass laws. They really are the most powerful, I would argue.
And I did speak about how they interrupted the Trump administration and brought us COVID. Some of them did, trust me. And they were impeaching him the whole time. They had the power to do that. They could have done it if they had enough votes. They didn't have the votes. Impeachment is a big deal. It shouldn't be thrown around willy-nilly.
No. And I think that we've seen it thrown around a lot more in more recent years than we have in the past. It's, I don't have the statistics in front of me, but I would argue that impeachment has been brought up more since 1996 than it ever was in the previous 100 years.
Truly. And I would argue, in hindsight, should have never tried to impeach Clinton.
No.
That was a mistake by the Republicans. It really was. What he did was wrong. It just wasn't an impeachable offense.
No. and uh, I think they've seen that. But I also think that, unfortunately, what we see in America nowadays too is the idea of impeachment is somewhat tied to let's punish the previous administration or the existing administration for what we failed to achieve when we had the House or the Senate or the Oval Office under our control. It's become a weaponization or a tool to weaponize politics as opposed to a tool to remove somebody who has actually broken the law or done something outside of the scope of their office.
So you say there's weaponization in politics?
That's exactly what it is.
So would you consider President Trump, weaponizing politics, or is it just seeking justice?
I would say he's seeking justice, and I would say he's also using the powers he has the authority to use as the president. If he is overstepping those bounds, there's the judicial system, there's the laws in place that prevent that. There's the Constitution, there's the Congress. Mm-hmm. If there's anything that he is exceeding his limits or bounds, he will be challenged under the checks and balances system, either by the judiciary or by the Congress.
Yes, and let's just see how it all works out. I mean, he won in the courts.
Yes.
I've said there's a few cases out of New York, the corrupt state of New York, very corrupt state of New York. Can't even elect people from their own state to their offices. It's remarkable. They got rid of Trump, though. Right. That's one good thing they did. And they've gotten rid of a lot of their population, too. So if you don't believe in overpopulation, go live in New York because it's getting smaller and smaller. But I think there's a few cases there where like 30, 40 years ago, he was accused of saying the wrong things, acting inappropriately with women. And there was a lot of money put towards those cases. And it might have been one woman. I don't know. It's so insignificant. But a lot of money was given to this woman, probably pay her, Democratic Socialist lawyer. But I don't think that money's come to her yet, has it?
Not to my knowledge.
That might be the only thing there's going to be some question whether he gets out of or not, but he will appeal that to the last minute, just as long as he can. It could go to Supreme Court for something.
It could.
I'm sure they screwed up somewhere.
But it does echo, as we mentioned before, it echoes Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
It's just kind of almost a mirror image. Clinton had the same issues with,
How can you accuse somebody of sexual harassment 30, 35 years later? How do you do that? He's running for office. How does that work?
I'm not sure.
It's statute of limitations.
Statute of limitations.
How does it get through a court? It's been 35, 40 years.
It gets difficult, and then the motives, the ability to prove it. There are a lot of issues that come up from that. But I think again, it goes back to politics. If we can find some dirt, if we can find somebody to say something, we're going to use it, and if it helps us, great. If it doesn't, we didn't lose anything, other than maybe a few people who may have been on the border of whether I wanted to support that side or not. It's and unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, I think in America right now, most people kind of know where they stand. I don't think that middle ground is wavers as much as it used to. I think people are a lot more. They're a lot more entrenched on one set of values versus another, and I think that's what it comes down to. Is it's not necessarily Republican, Democrat, Independent, Libertarian, whatever your political affiliation is. I think it's really coming down to what are your values and what is your vision of America. And I think on that we have more defined lines, regardless of political party, where it's the mindset. We kind of mentioned that.
I think it's
Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, and Charlie was all about reality. And I think what it boils down to is how close do you want to be to reality when it comes to making decisions about who your elected leaders are. And is that elected leader part of the reality movement where you do what is appropriate and proper? And sometimes you got to listen to history. Sometimes you got to learn from history.
That's right.
And that's kind of a unique thing, because I think Trump sees history and he's looking way back and how to make things happen. He's looking back to our founders a little bit. And they look back to the Greeks and the Romans and how they did things and how the English did things, and took the best of that and see if they could make it work. I mean, he's trying to overturn a lot of things right now, like the government shutdown. I heard him saying, "Hey, I don't know why the Democrats want to have a shutdown. I'm gonna fire their people first."
Right.
I mean, that's the way Trump talks.
Yeah, and
He's very plain spoken.
that's right. And I think
You think he'll get away with it?
I think that he can do what he wants to do. Again, it falls to the courts and everybody to decide. But I think the government shutdown. You can argue that the Democrats are, in the right. You can argue that the Republicans are in the right.
Well, let's talk about the bureaucrat class.
Yeah, the bureaucratic class. That's where they seek to stay in power because
they're like the fourth branch of government.
To some extent, when you talk about the welfare state, the bureaucratic class is the worst offender of the welfare state.
I can tell you, at the local level, we deal with the welfare state at the local level. They love it when we get more money. The more money we get, the more jobs you got in welfare. The more you give away, it increases the economy locally. There's people selling more cars. You see people on welfare driving big vehicles. I mean, it's good for a lot of folks. And we even see Republicans very happy with the welfare state at certain levels. But it's counterproductive to our nation, isn't it? And our spirit as human beings.
It is, in my opinion, because you can even argue it coming from the military, not necessarily a bureaucrat, but you get a paycheck, you get insurance, you get health care, you get retirement, and you get a fairly easy job that's almost impossible to be fired from. It's not too bad to be a bureaucrat.
No.
And you don't have to really perform either to keep your job. No. It's very difficult to get fired as a bureaucrat.
Well, I've lived through a lot of administrations in Beaufort County government, and I remember back to the days where we had about 295 employees. Now we've got about 435 employees in Beaufort County. Our population really hasn't increased that much. So how'd that happen?
It's self-serving.
I voted against every one of those increases of positions because I vote against the budget every time because there's so much low-hanging fruit that's not seized.
And I would argue that it's a budgetary issue. That's why our national debt is as bad as it is. It's and I speak coming from the military again. I think I may have alluded to it before in the past in a previous segment, but in the military, you get a certain budget each year. Mm-hmm. It gets allocated to all the different units and branches of service and everything else down to the individual unit level, and that money gets spent. If you don't spend all your money by the end of the fiscal year, that money rolls over and into another unit.
At the local level.
No, not at the local level, but at the national level. So, as you go through the time zones, any money not spent on Eastern, on the East Coast goes to the West Coast units and you have to spend it. But if you don't spend it all, the next year you don't get the same amount, you get less. But we always look for a reason to find more employees. And another argument would be when we looked at it's really not around anymore, the OFCCP. Part of the Department of Labor, they were responsible for all of your affirmative action plans and government contracting. They always had to justify every year how many remedies did we get from going after corporate America for anything that they were doing wrong or in violation. And so we needed more employees so that we could audit more companies, and we needed to bring in more money. But they never really were as effective as they should have been for what was being spent on them. But it was self-serving. We need more. We need more.
That's what generals
should do. More for.
That's really what generals should do. Yeah. But they don't want to, do they?
No.
Because it's political.
That's right.
I mean, they're political, but they don't want to act politically.
That's right.
Unless it's to their benefit.
Generals are supposed to be apolitical. You serve the military. Of course, there's the internal politics of the military. How do you get promoted, especially when you get to higher rank and Congress is involved in promotions? That's the political acting.
Self-serving,
not so much as self-serving as I would argue, as opposed to being everybody has to play those games. It's the same office games you would see in corporate America.
So that's why Trump picked Major Pete Hegseth to be in charge of the Defense Department.
To some extent, I would say yes. After his first term and all of that may be why.
And he saw that. He saw it firsthand because he thought the generals would be the right guys, and they weren't. He hired them. He hired no generals. Have you noticed that?
Yeah.
There's no generals on the cabinet. None. Zero.
And general officers, I will say, are very, very effective leaders. And,
yes.
And they're very good at what they do. They bring a lot of skills to the civilian job. And there are a lot more good generals than there are bad. But again, it goes back to the politicization of the bureaucratic class, and that's where Hegseth comes in, I would say, to the Department of War, formerly the Department of Defense, and brings that different look from, let's get away from what the bureaucrats have been doing, and the bureaucrats are tied to the politicians and they're tied to the special interest groups. Let's get rid of all that junk and go back to doing what we need to do and do it right. And I think we see that with Trump going after the Department of Education and a lot of these other things that we saw with Doge. Is we don't need all these bureaucrats. We don't need all of this government to effectively do what we need to do as a nation. And let's figure out what we do need, make that work, and trim the fat, because if we trim the fat, that helps reduce national debt. It helps us reallocate resources to other places that could utilize them better. And if you're a taxpayer, it should reduce your tax burden.
Yeah, it should.
I mean, it seems fairly common sense.
I want to revisit one thing I said. I said it's not done at the local level.
Right. Yes.
I'm wrong. I meant it wouldn't do it. It wouldn't happen at the local level if I was in control with another group of commissioners. And I would be a leader, of course, since I've got seniority along with Commissioner Hood Richardson. I mean, if we get a young upstart Republican who wants to lead things, he's going to be gone real fast. We know more than anybody about local government in this county. I don't care if you're getting paid a lot of money to be a manager. We know more than you do. Okay, just want you to know that, public to know that. And if we ever get a majority up there on that board, the money will not go in little pots of money. So this is where we got this money, we can spend it. You know something? That money's going to go in the general fund, and we're going to figure out how we can use it. And if we don't need it, it's going back to the taxpayers. All of you that are paying high taxes because your valuation went up, trust me, we could have cut the tax rate a whole lot more, and we did, and they didn't. They're spending more money this year than they spent last year. They're going to keep doing it. They're going to keep hiring more people. They're going to waste more money. They're going to pay people a lot more than they're worth.
It's always easy to find a new project to throw dollars at just because you have the ability to, and then use that as the excuse to need more. Yeah. It goes. We mention it sometimes, and it's another thing happening big in the news right now with President Trump going after the drug runners. You know,
I love that war on drugs.
You know, blowing boats up. That's where the war on drugs really takes it to the next level.
Oh no, that's why I'm saying Trump may do things differently. He's hearkening back to the olden days. We just take him out.
Yeah, and
Roosevelt would have done that.
Right. And so I think that's an effective way. It was very effective in the Middle East in dealing with the terror networks. I think when you look at these cartels and some of these other drug running organizations, when you start losing facilities, when you start having senior leadership taken off the board, when you have if I'm driving a truck and the truck all of a sudden is obliterated, it doesn't take very long before people start thinking maybe this is a little bit more dangerous than I want to be involved with, and it takes supply, out of the equation. But we don't have that issue. Yeah. But that's talking about illegal drugs coming into the United States from outside of the country. If we look at a lot of these folks wanting to legalize marijuana, we can get taxes from it.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
We get people even more stupid than they are now. But we get money from it.
If you're going to make that a revenue source, then you should be able to cut taxes somewhere else, whether it's property tax, income tax, something else. Unfortunately, what would most likely happen is we have a new revenue stream. Instead of reducing taxes somewhere else, we're just going to find something else to spend this new extra money on. And that goes back to bureaucrats or projects that we don't need, or slush funds that are hidden away for pet projects, whatever the case may be. And that goes back to waste, fraud, and abuse that we saw, or even outright corruption, which those, and President Trump were looking to eliminate. And I think we can do that at all levels of our government.
Well, speaking of all levels, yesterday I had a very long conversation in my capacity as a county commissioner with Sheriff Hammonds. And Sheriff Hammonds, speaking for Sheriff Hammonds, he did tell me this. I think he would like for me to relate it. He's very much in favor with the war on drugs, the way it's happening.
Absolutely.
Very much in favor with the wall getting put up. Very much in favor with the gunboat diplomacy. What was it, 5 or 6 of their ships been taken out?
I think it's up to 6 now. It may have been 5.
CIA going into some of these countries and upsetting things and doing whatever it takes to keep these life-killing drugs. Because if they don't kill you through overdose, they kill little pieces of you all along. They make us a much dumber population.
It's the whole way around. What you see, it destroys individuals, it destroys families. It's taking wealth away to some extent. You're wasting money on things that are
Some people are
poison.
making money.
Some people are making money.
Those people who love Satan are making money.
And the issue with that is the crime that's involved with it. The violence and above and beyond that, the incarceration rate, because now we have to pay to house these folks who've been incarcerated for repeated offenses or anything else. It's just a downward spiral. And
let me ask you a question. If the state of North Carolina went to all the counties and they said, county commissioners, there's like 535 of you guys out there. We really care about what you think. We're trying to decide whether to have recreational marijuana in North Carolina or not. And we're going to go to you and see how do you feel? Can you write a resolution in support, at least take a vote? How would you want me to vote on that issue? Pro or con? Pro recreational marijuana or con recreational marijuana?
I would say con.
Con? You want me to? Okay.
I think we should do a poll on ENCNow about that.
That's a good idea. Let's do it.
I think that's the next poll we should put up.
Well, from your lips to Stan's ears, I would vote against it. And I would vote against it 100%. And I'll tell you why. We don't need any more stupid of a population we have in North Carolina right now. And it will make us dumber. It will make you dumber. I don't care how much money you get. We will not get enough money to make you smarter through education or any other means. It's not going to happen. And especially with drugs, marijuana the way it is now, as powerful as it is. This isn't like what the hippies were smoking years ago. The ones that participated in the Kings rallies. Watching those old guys out there dancing. I was embarrassed for them. I really was.
And I would argue,
these are my contemporaries. I am so embarrassed.
Look at the states that have legalized it.
Yeah, look at Colorado, Oregon, California, New York,
and they're not saying that they're getting any benefit that I have seen from it.
No,
it's been a while since I've looked at any statistics, but I think that even the revenues they were expecting, have not equated to where it was, and it's become more of a nuisance or
well, I said
an issue.
I will say this: the black market's undercutting.
That's going to always be the issue.
Yeah, that will always be the issue. The black market will continue to exist. I mean, the war on drugs is going to continue to exist if we have the will to do so.
It's difficult to make cocaine, heroin, things like that in the United States.
Yeah,
those are imported. That's the war on drugs. Marijuana, you can grow it in your backyard. You can do that, and so that again, from a legalization standpoint, that's an issue because the black market can always undercut you, and or people are just going to go to growing it at home, and then that gets into, well, do you just make it legal that we're not going to lock you up if you use it, but if you sell it, there's so many other questions that fall into that.
How do you manage that? How do you monitor that?
It becomes,
how does not become a barter issue?
That becomes such a big issue. So
why would I want my kid giving some person services,
right,
so they can get this other service that they feel is a service, which is making my kid dumber.
Right. And
who knows what other service my child would have to barter to get that service. I don't like it. No, I don't like it. Anything that's not of God it's kind of a problem.
And that, for me. That's why it becomes illegal.
It might not be for you, but it is for me, and I think it is for you as well.
But it's just one of those things. But what we're seeing coming out of the news right now, I think the war on all of these higher end drugs, these harder drugs, whatever word you want to term, I think that's the right course.
It is,
and I think it's long overdue.
But just like the ICE raids, they'll probably be bombing marijuana just before it's all over with. Because we were going to talk about ICE. We both believe that ICE is doing a very important job. If you came in this country illegally, I'm sorry you weren't told that you were illegal and you thought that you were going to get a whole lot more than you got, because it came to you. It was promised to you, and it came to you. A lot of you were flown into the country and under some kind of a fake auspice that you had, what's it called?
Either immunity or looking for not immunity.
Well, I can't even remember the word because it doesn't apply.
If you're seeking asylum or anything else.
Seeking asylum. Right, I had a senior moment. Seeking asylum. it doesn't apply. I mean, you got to stop and seek asylum in the country closest to your country, and you got to go to our embassies and seek it there if you want to come to America, and then you got to apply and you got to be accepted. Now they just flew them right in, and 80% of these people were given asylum, and they're awaiting their court date, and most of them won't show up. So ICE is gonna and we're gonna have to adjudicate every one of them.
That's right.
Because of the way they did it. It'll cost $1 trillion before it's all over with. So
it's an issue.
It's an issue, and it's going to have to happen. We're either a nation of laws or we're nothing.
And that's what it boils down to is laws. America was built on immigration. We are a nation of immigrants, and there is nothing wrong with immigration. I support immigration, but I support it as long as it is done legally. And I would argue that even those folks who just immigrated legally to America would tell you the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in immigration as long as you do it the right way. The issues that we're seeing is the illegal immigration coming in and how that impacts society, whether we're spending your tax dollars to support people who are here illegally,
or allowing your neighborhood to become just completely damaged.
So that's the issues. Whether it's the crime coming in, us supporting groups, whether there's more nefarious reasons for wanting to bring folks in. Say you bring in a whole group of folks from outside and you offer them something. Here's the carrot. Vote for me and I'll give you something.
Yeah.
And we've seen that here in the United States for an extended period of time is as long as you keep voting for us, we will always do this for you. But then they never do it.
These illegal folks can't vote.
They can't vote. But
what can they do?
They can.
Constitutionally, they have the right to be part of the census.
That's right.
And that means more appropriations for certain states. And it also means more representation in Congress for certain states. So why are these states, all of them blue states, why are they becoming sanctuary states? Oh,
it increases the population, increases the representation in Congress.
And appropriations from the federal government that's already way too large.
Right. So there's other issues involved above and beyond. We just want to be open arms to everybody and treat them the same. It's even a political issue. It's a political issue. It even goes back to the birthright issue.
Yeah.
Whether you call them anchor babies, whether you call them folks who come over and you're born here. Well, just because you're born in the United States doesn't mean you're a United States citizen. And
not if both your parents are illegal.
If both of your parents are illegal. And that's where in the 14th Amendment, a lot of folks get messed up or confused. And the birthright folks will argue it because they don't want to read through the whole piece of it. But the 14th Amendment was essentially enacted.
It is the 14th.
Yes.
Okay. And sometimes I get them mixed up. But go ahead. I was just going to add to that. I know exactly what you're going to say. Go right ahead.
It was essentially enacted to give citizenship to the former black slaves and their descendants to make them U.S. citizens following the end of the war between the states.
Because they were brought here illegally
themselves. So that gave them citizenship. And it says that going forward, if you are, born, or if you're, and I apologize, I'll misquote it, but essentially, if you were born or naturalized here and you fall under the jurisdiction of the United States, that's the other key piece. You fall under the jurisdiction. Anybody who comes to the United States, if you're a diplomat, if you're a tourist, if you come here legally or illegally, you fall under the jurisdiction of our laws. If you do something wrong, we will arrest you. We will take you to trial, and then you'll either go to jail or we'll send you back to where you came from or whatever the case may be. So to some extent, you fall under our jurisdiction. However, you don't fall underneath our allegiance system. Mm-hmm. You owe your allegiance to that country from whence you came. If you are here illegally, you owe your allegiance. You fall underneath that country, whether it's somewhere in South America, whether it's China, whether it's out of the Middle East, whether it's out of Europe. Your allegiance is to that country in which you were already a citizen. Mm-hmm. When you come here, just being here or being born here did not mean that you owed your allegiance to us. If your two parents are here illegally, their allegiance is to wherever they came from. Hence, your allegiance would be to wherever they came from. And just because you were born here, again, it said born or naturalized. You can come here, you can immigrate legally, you can become a naturalized U.S. citizen. That's the pathway to citizenship. That's how that works. The argument there is, well, you were born here, Well, okay, you were born here, but if the 14th Amendment that was passed in the mid 1800s said you were born here, you're automatically an American, why did it take until the Indian Rights Act of 1924 to say Native Americans and their children are American citizens? Because they owed their allegiance to the tribe.
Yeah, to
That
the
was the
nation.
argument, to the nation from whence they came. Therefore, they were not considered American citizens. That's the same argument that you would have for illegals coming here.
They
having
actually
their
have
children.
dual citizenship.
They have dual citizenship. So
which is kind of cool.
When we look at that, it was 99 or 101 years ago. Excuse me, 101 years ago, we finally say Native Americans who'd been here before us can be considered citizens of our nation that we built around them. But if you come here illegally and have a child, that child's automatically an American.
Yes.
So they missed that argument.
It's an affront to the Native Americans, if nobody else.
That's what I would say. So folks kind of miss they misconstrue that argument. They read it separately.
The reason the Supreme Court has not ruled on it already in the favor of you're not really a citizen is because of all the precedents.
Right.
There's a lot of, this has not been approached or broached, and they've allowed this to happen way too long. But at some point, there will be a Supreme Court that will overturn it. It'll be a big political issue because Democratic Socialists are looking to vote these people at some point. Now they're just getting these census benefits of appropriations and greater representation in Congress. But eventually, they're going to want to vote them either through amnesty or they will vote them illegally, as they are voting them illegally in many counties in many blue states already.
Right.
In fact, it's done above board if in local elections. And they're probably voting in federal elections too. That's why we elect people by the states.
Right.
That's why we have electoral college. That will never change. You think your popular vote's ever going to come into take the fore? It will never take the fore. Not with all the illegals we have in certain states. And let's get to that. Why is President Trump sending ICE to blue states where there are sanctuary cities and sanctuary counties, and the whole state is a sanctuary state, which is legal as long as their General Assembly will allow it.
That's right.
Now, I'd like to say one thing before you go to that. North Carolina this year has stopped allowing any county or any city to become sanctuary. There were 12, believe it or not, out of our 100 counties, 12 sanctuary counties in this state. And I didn't even know it was that many. I thought it was like 6. I think that doubled up because of the election. They wanted to kind of get on board with it and make a stand. And it was a bad stand. It was a dumb stand. It was really stupid. But that's ended in North Carolina. And I'm going to say one more thing. I talked to Sheriff Hammonds about illegals and the cost of illegals. And he wants them out of his jail, unless it's a murder or something big. He wants them out. ICE will be called.
And that's the key piece. It goes back to the judicial system.
Yeah.
They are here. They're here illegally. They are arrested for something.
Yeah.
They go through the legal system, and then the judge makes that determination. You're here illegally. You broke a law. We can decide to put you in prison here, or we can ship you back out.
Yeah.
But it still goes through the court system, the legal system. But that, again, big drain on time, big drain on resources.
Best thing to do
money,
is get them out
everything.
of your jail immediately. And I mean, there may be some other extenuating circumstances for other heinous crimes that he want to go ahead and prosecute them. But I don't want to speak for him. But for the most part, yes, small stuff, he wants them out of the jail and he wants them out of the country. And I do too. I want them gone.
There's a reason we kept a lot of people at Guantanamo.
But why? You have Sheriff Hammonds and most of the county commissioners wanting to do this. Okay, at least I know Hood and myself and Tandy Dunn want to do this. I can speak for us. Why are they harboring illegals and some of the worst in these blue cities and blue counties and blue states where they're all sanctuary, top to bottom?
I think it goes back to there's ulterior motives at play. It's not necessarily the benevolent messaging that's going out. We welcome everybody. We want them to have equal opportunity. We want them to bring here.
That's that empathetic ruse.
I think it goes back to it's a power play.
It's power play.
It's either to keep certain folks in power in their existing office, or it is to try and gain additional power or leverage from a political standpoint at the state or national level.
So you take away this, you get, because it was never thought that our nation would become the doormat for illegals in this hemisphere.
Right.
And then really we're getting them from all hemispheres now. After the Biden administration, they were coming in from China and Haiti and Africa, all over, of the Middle East. And a lot of terrorists came in. And we're finding out more and more these people were not a benefit to our society, but it's happening now in America as such, and we are in a position right now that we've got to do something. And I think the justices are going to really have to take a real hard look at immigration.
I think,
and does it do our amendments truly ascribe to the policies of today, and do we need to have constitutional amendments to change certain things? Now we can do that. It's hard to do. It's hard to change the Constitution of the United States, but you can do it. It's been done many times.
And that's what it boils down to. And we're not the only nation that's struggling with the issue of immigration. If you look at a lot of the European nations, they're still struggling with the same issues that we're seeing now.
They're turning.
They're turning different as well.
Yeah.
And but they also have much more stringent laws than we do. Germany, for example. You had a big Turkish population that immigrated there after World War II to help rebuild. It was cheap labor, almost the same that we look at as our South American immigrants and that kind of cycle. Well, just because they were brought or came to to Germany, they were not German citizens. The laws were, if I remember correctly, sometime between the early 1920s and the mid 70s, you couldn't be a German citizen unless your father was a German citizen. So if you came over and you weren't a citizen, and then you have a child, but your dad's not German, you're not German. And it didn't matter if you were born there. It didn't even matter if your mother was German to some extent, if I remember correctly. So it was much more difficult to become a German citizen, even though you have 4 generations now that are of Turkish descent, living in Germany, fully integrated, speak the language. You're not German citizens. So they're trying to figure that out. They're looking now at offering a path to dual citizenship that would allow them to have both. A lot of folks didn't like that from the Turkish population because there's mandatory military service in Turkey. So if you keep the Turkish, or if you're in Germany and you take that, then, well, I got to go back to Turkey, do my time before I come back. There wasn't universal conscription in Germany after at least about 10, 15, 20 years ago with the fall of the end of the Cold War. So they're trying to figure this out, but just from having been there, from having studied it and all that, their way of trying to deal with the Turkish population is very similar to what we're dealing with our.
So it's been about 90 years of still working on it.
Still working on it.
And then there was Angela Merkel.
Right.
That brought them in from everywhere.
Yeah.
What was that all about?
I think it was the same type thing. We'll bring in folks, grant them asylum. We've got good, we've got a good economy.
Give them citizenship.
Didn't give them citizenship. You can come, you can live.
Okay.
But yeah, now of course you can always naturalize. And if I remember correctly, in order to naturalize in Germany, it's very much the same as we have here in America. You have to have lived there for at least 5 years. You have to be able to pass the language test, which we don't have here. You have to have a certain level of German fluency in order to live there. You have to understand the legal system, the values. You have to understand the guilt for the National Socialist movement, and you have to be self-employed and providing for yourself and your family members.
Well, that's good, because that's not what we have now.
That's not what we have here.
But I have this question. I mean, Joe Biden did it on his own. I mean, he didn't. The laws of the United States prohibit what he did.
Right.
I mean, he's really a traitor to the laws of the United States. Do the German laws allow for such?
I don't know all the rules of all the laws of how it works, but essentially it's kind of how we have here. You can come, you can work on an extended visa, you can stay there on extended visa, and as long as you're working and you're participating and all, they have that, and you can be there. It's a little bit different because, well, I mean, essentially like we have here, we have multiple generations who have been here. we might call them illegal because they had come here and they'd been here, but depending on your interpretation of birthright citizenship, the first generation born here is now U.S. citizen, and then their children are U.S. citizen. Whereas in Germany, that didn't exist. There's still a separate class of folks who live in a kind of
in other words, Germany
realm.
At least doesn't have the anchor baby thing.
That they don't have that.
So America needs to get that straightened out.
That would be the key piece too.
Because we really don't have it straightened out.
No, and that's the key piece, is determining the birthright citizenship, and once you determine that, you determine the legal pathway to citizenship for those folks who are coming over. And
the test case was from the late 1800s. A Chinese man was born to two illegal Chinese, but he was here and he grew up in America, and he became naturalized legally, and then he went to China for business and came back, and they wouldn't let him back in.
Right.
But he had already been naturalized, so that's like apples and oranges.
It's kind of a different, it's a different scenario.
But I mean, if you really look at that as the test case, it doesn't work.
Not really. And if I remember correctly, one of the reasons that case they really kind of sided and said, it's okay, we'll make you a citizen now, is because even at that point in time still, the Chinese were so heavily discriminated against. Yeah. They had enough laws there to say, well, you're a citizen, but the laws kind of keep you from being a citizen too.
But he still became a citizen.
But he became a citizen.
Yeah, these people haven't become citizens yet.
They haven't become citizens yet. So
and there's just too many of them.
Right.
And that's amnesty is never going to happen in America.
I don't think
not
so.
for dreamers, not for anybody. I mean, that negotiation's gone. No. Joe Biden ruined that negotiation. He killed it.
I think the way that you become a citizen, even if you're here illegally, is you go through the naturalization process.
Go through the naturalization process.
And that's the way.
I'm okay with that.
And there are a lot of
but you probably got to go back and come in. You got to get a visa.
You should probably get a visa to come in.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to do that, or you're already breaking the laws.
That's right. Of course, military service is a pathway to a quick way to get citizenship. So there's, and if you believe in America, if you believe in the values, putting the uniform on is going to be a good way to get set up.
Thanks for listening, and thanks for watching. And again, join in, work with us, say whatever you want to say within reason. Try to be diplomatic about it to whatever extent you want, but come to Eastern North Carolina now, and we welcome you there.